Well, humanity, it's time we've had the talk. You know, we've gotten to that age where we're looking up in the stratosphere and we're seeing all kinds of craft move around up there, and it's giving us all these funny feelings on the inside. It's okay. That's normal. It's just time we've had the birds and the bees of the galactic universe discussion, okay? Now, when particle matter in space is really attracted to one another, it comes together and creates life. And obviously, the mathematical odds of human beings being the only life in all known universes is so incomprehensible that it's just not a thing. Obviously, we're not the only life in the universe, gang, okay? So it's time we just suck it up, admit that, move along, and discuss our off-world cousins. Well, I'm going to talk to you today about the four main beings that come to our planet. Now, there are literally thousands of off-world beings out in the known universes and unknown universes. We're going to stick to the top four that have influenced our culture the most here. It's important to recognize that these beings have been around for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, past us in evolution. So their space travel, their known and unknown to us, knowledge of physics, all of this is so far ahead of us, we really have no way to relate with them technologically. So let's just get that out of the way, first and foremost. Secondly, let's talk about these beings, who they are, and which craft are associated with which off-world cousin. Let's start with the ones that we've been shooting out of the sky, because what do we do on the earth when we don't understand something? We shoot it down! Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. However, if you've seen craft in the sky that is round, that is cigar-shaped, that is tic-tac shaped, or a series of tennis balls put together, those craft are from Sirius AB. They have a very specific propulsion system that creates an artificial atmosphere actually around the craft, like the hull of a ship, that allows it to float in the atmosphere of any given planet. And they can actually augment that atmosphere around their ship to be thicker or thinner depending on the density of the atmosphere of the world that they go to, or space where you don't have any resistance, you know. So it's a whole hull mechanism that is created by energies, and that's why they seem to float. So those Sirius AB craft, it's important to note that those beings aren't actually from Sirius. Sirius is a binary star. It's an AB star system, and it wings around each other. That would be like if our off-world friends called us suns, because our planet is by a sun. But I'm going to use the star systems that they're around just for clarity. So our Sirius AB folk, they've been coming here forever. We can thank them for the pyramids at Giza, which are actually 8-sided, not 4-sided. True story. They have a slight little dent in each side of the pyramid. Anyway, those pyramids were power generators back in the day. So they gave us that. They gave us other architectural attributes all over the world. Our Sirius AB folks flew around the planet all the way to the bottom of the earth, down in Australia with the Aboriginal cultures, and gave the Aboriginal tribes the star mounds, which taught them at that time about the known universe, because the folks from Sirius AB, they are our terraformers, they are our explorers. They're not out to take a planet and make it into their planet. They just want to help us out with cool tech, all right? So those are the folks from Sirius. Round, cigar-shaped, tic-tac, a series of tennis ball, those are the Sirius AB craft. Not to say that other races couldn't pilot them, but that's generally where they come from. What do these beings look like? Well, they kind of look like us in a way, except they're way bigger. I mean, a short one of these guys is 8 or 9 feet tall, and they range up to like 15 feet. They are big dudes. They have real thick lips and a more pronounced, wider nose. They kind of have that little coney head off the back. They got a slightly different brain system. They have a multiple lung system. They're big. They resemble us the most physically. And really, the only skin tone colors I'm familiar with these guys are either super white, Like they're so white, they're almost see-through, like that color of skim milk that's a bluey white color. They're super duper white. Or I've seen ones that are blue. They're just blue. And we don't need to get into how I've seen them and all these things. That's not the point of this exact video. We can talk about that later. However, these are the skin tones that have been made known, okay? And not just to me. These are world government issues. If you want to read about the world governments and which off-world races that they've dealt with over the years, especially through military assessment, read former Minister of Defense, Canada's former Minister of Defense's book. His name was Paul Hellyer. Look him up. He wrote about all of these beings and how they interface with the government. I'm not here to talk about that right now. So that's our folks from Sirius, okay? Then moving on to our other big cultural influencers, okay? The folks from Otur. And that's actually the name of their realm. Now, we mispronounce their name and call them Arcturians. Arcturian. It's Oturan, all right? And they live on a world that, from our vantage point, looking from Earth, that world would be between the middle star of Orion's belt and the one to the right. Now, obviously, the constellation of Orion is not a flat constellation. I mean, that's made of a lot of different things. But if you go between those two belt stars and keep going out there, way, way, way out there. As a matter of fact, I think they might come, they're not in our galaxy. They come from another part of the interstellar universe, and I think they come through a big portal or wormhole out there, and they pop in, and that's where they seem to come through. So those folks, the Oturan of Otur is what that means. Those guys have influenced us, giving us the seeds of what we then turned into Taoism and Buddhism. We are all one. These are the beings that are carved into stones in Sumeria. These are the beings in spaceships. If you see a spacecraft, a flying saucer, that's our galactic cousins from Otur, okay? The best part about these guys is they are super chill. And they came down to also give us a little bit more, I would say, modality help rather than architectural help. Sirius AB helps us with architecture and energy. The Oturan are more like, we are one. Let's just be cool, man. Everybody love one another. Although they did give us some spire architecture that you see in a certain part of the world, down in, Thailand and all kinds of areas down there. Like in Angkor Wat, those really tall, square spires that actually generate a lot of energy and pull them in. That's classic Oturan architecture. So they brought us all of that. They also, in Sumeria, brought star scrolls to help the astronomers understand Earth's positioning in the galaxy. And we see some really fascinating Sumerian ancient carvings from like anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000 BC of flying saucers with like what we think of like as a little classic alien guys. And they were coming to help us out with star charts. They also helped out our Hopi nation. And we have the Hopis who talk about the star beings. The Sirius AB folks also helped out with the star beings. So for the Hopi nation. So what do these guys look like? Well, they're more what we would think of as alien-y, although they're not the big bobbleheads with the big angry eyeballs. These guys range anywhere from like 3 to 4 feet tall, all the way to like 7, 8 feet tall. And just depending on which part of their planet they're from, just like human beings, you know, people vary in height. They have a heart-shaped head, not the big bulby eyes, but more of just the very beautiful, actually, almond eyes, more of a flat face. Their skin feels like that of a salamander. It's not quite as slimy, but it's kind of tacky and it's thin. And they smell like cinnamon, which is weird. They've got this cinnamony, clovey smell that comes off of them, which is very interesting. Their skin color, just like humans, varies as well. And it can be pink like ours. It can be more gray colored, like we think about the grays. Light green, they almost can be kind of a variegated green with a dark color that kind of fades to a light green. It's actually really pretty. So they've got a really different palette of skin tones over on Otur, which is very interesting. So they, again, Taoism, Buddhism, those were the seeds. We developed it into those modalities, as well as giving us some really fascinating energetic towers. kind of in the same way that Sirius AB did. Okay, that's those guys. Now, we're going to talk about the bobble-headed dudes with the great big eyeballs that Hollywood has captivated our minds with because they'll come and abduct you. Well, actually, sadly, they went through a period of doing that. They're not doing it anymore. I'm not going to get into why on this particular video. Those beings are separate from the Otur, but they originally came from that Oturan system. They now live in gravityless environments. They've actually technically genetically modified themselves like mad. So they really can't live in a gravity environment. They've got these big bobbleheads and tiny necks. Their heads would snap off. So they kind of live on their craft full time. Why would they do that? Just touching lightly on it, the best I can tell you is that in a human standpoint, these beings, the big bobble-headed ones with the great big eyeballs, which are called Oturanak, which literally means in their language, of Otur, of our own, they literally would be more like a religious sect that went a little crazy and tried to create this perfection thing. Didn't work so well for them, so anyway, that's another story for another time. But they've come in and out. They're not visiting us as much now that they're not noodling with our genetics to try to fix some genetics in them. It's mostly just the Oturan. So if you see a being with kind of a heart-shaped face and really pretty angular eyes, it's not the ones that are going to abduct you, so don't panic, all right? Seriously. We should not all be persecuted for the actions of our relatives, should we? We should not, so let's not be crazy. So those are three, and then we get to the fourth guys. We like to call these guys the Pleiadians, except for the fact that the Pleiades is a star grouping of the Seven Sisters. It's the Subaru logo, all right? So the Pleiades has many, many, many different beings out there in many star systems. The ones that are common that we've seen here are blue. They also are in kind of a saucer-shaped craft when they traveled that way. Our galactic cousins in the Pleiades, you guys, are way millions of years ahead of us in evolution. So a lot of times they don't even need a corporeal form. They can shapeshift, they can do all kinds of things. In our history here dealing with humanity, they've appeared blue, tall, chill. They have had devices that allowed them to fly, like sky chariots, way back in the day. Those are the beings from the Pleiades. And they too bring us aspects of meditation. They too bring us and taught us aspects of astral projection. Our galactic cousins, guys, have been trying to work with us since we came about as a species to tell us that we're not alone. So don't be afraid of them. They're not here to take over the earth. Anybody tells you that, they're full of crap, okay? If they wanted the earth, they would have taken it over way before we ever evolved on the earth. They would have taken it. They've got their own worlds. They don't need ours. So when we're looking up in the sky and we're seeing that our military is shooting things down now, here's an interesting commentary about that. If you think back to last year, was it the Navy or the Air Force, one of our branches of the military here in the USA, released footage of our military planes chasing an orb. And they were kind of like a dog and a squirrel. Like the orb was just letting the planes chase it around, and the planes were trying to catch up to it, and it would go as fast as they could, and then the orb would just move out of the way and whatnot. These craft from Sirius AB, you guys, they can disarm our missiles. They've disarmed our nuclear missiles at Malmstrom Air Force Base in the 60s. They've disarmed missiles in mid-flight down south. They've shut down our nuclear silos over in the UK. They've taken off on our aircraft at like Mach 2 million and left us in the dust. So the fact that we're shooting them out of the sky right now is curious to me. Because either A, somebody on Earth has reverse engineered Sirius AB tech, made these little putt-putt things and are sending them through our atmosphere, and our military is shooting them down, or B, they're allowing us to shoot these craft down all over the planet all at one time, so that we have to come together and have this conversation about what the heck they are. All right? I mean, China just shot one down over Lake Huron, over the Yukon. I mean, they're all over the place. Up here in Montana, our airspace keeps getting shut down. And will you please stop shutting our airspace down? My sisters-in-law are trying to take a trip, man. They need to fly out of here. So here's the deal. Now you understand where life in the universe comes from. And we don't need to be scared. We can be cool about it. And no matter what they come out with on these UAPs or UFOs or where they say they're from, now you know you're not alone in the universe. I hope our talk has helped today with your awkward feelings.